The following program is rated PG. Parental guidance is advised, as the theme or content may not be suitable for all children. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hello everyone, I'm Zara Durrani. Welcome back to On Location Vancouver, brought to you with the support of TELUS Story Hive. Currently we're here and I'm deeply honored to be here at the Museum of Anthropology at UBC for the world's premiere of Entangled Territories, Tibet Through Images. This exhibition is a deeply moving exploration of the Tibetan diasporic community, their memories, their resilience, and their ongoing efforts to protect and celebrate their cultural identity. We're joined today by the exhibition's curator, Dr. Fuyubi Nakamura, whose work brings together historic archives, community stories, and contemporary artistic voices to reimagine Tibet through images. Let's go speak to Dr. Nakamura. Doctor, thank you so much for taking the time to join us.
Thank you for inviting me to join your program today.
Thank you. It's an honor, and I know we were not able to come here for the media tour, so we're so grateful to be here on a Monday when the MOA is closed, so we get to have the whole space to ourselves. What was the spark that led you to create Entangled Territories, Tibet Through Images?
I have a long-term interest in Tibetan cultures. Since visiting Dharamshala in India, where Tibetan is a government based, exactly 30 years ago in 1995, I have maintained an interest in Tibetan cultures because after that time, when I was a graduate student at the University of Oxford in the UK, my supervisor is a Tibetan specialist. Therefore, I had an opportunity to work on few Tibetan-related exhibitions and projects. So when I came here to UBC, I found out we had a fantastic Tibetan collection at the museum, as well as a very interesting archive materials. That's why I was aware somehow we can do the exhibition about Tibet.
So we're here now inside the Odeon part of MOA, Museum of Anthropology, and we're about to enter Entangled Territories, Tibet Through Images. Can you tell us about the title and what inspired the name?
Yeah, the Entangled Territory is was quite difficult title to translate into Tibetans, according to Tibetan translators and also my Tibetan colleagues. But when we think about the homeland for Tibetans and the situation where they're placed in, where their homeland is such a complex question. So therefore, I came up with this idea to call their land Entangled Territories. The first work you see at this exhibition is a work called Colonizer and Colonized by Lola. She has a mixed heritage. Her father is Tibetan, and her mother is a British Canadian. So she kind of borrowed the object from her parents' house and showcasing the photograph. She herself actually dressed up in the photos too. So this side is from my father's house. So she has many Tibetan objects in these photos, and she's also dressed up in the Tibetan traditional costume. But on the other hand, this side is her mother's house. So she has a British object in the photo and dressed up in British dress too. To think about her mixed heritage, but also who is colonizing and who is being colonized, and also living in Canada.
How did you approach building an exhibition that honors both history and the contemporary lived experience of the Tibetan Canadian community?
Yeah, so interesting enough, I'm also a professor in the Department of Asian Studies. I have two Tibetan colleagues in the department. One of them, Dr. Cherin Shakya, was also actually working, he was in UK. He worked on the same project at Oxford. He was working in London that time, but anyway. So when I kind of approached him, I was thinking of doing an exhibition of Tibet. and they asked me what kind of exhibition we should be doing. Then he kind of told me he wanted me to work with a younger generation of Tibetan here in Canada. That's why I ended up doing this exhibition in collaboration with Tibetan Canadian community members.
And what has that experience been like for you? Are there any moments that really resonated or moved you deeply?
Yeah, because all the students I have collaborated with were not born in Tibet. They are born elsewhere, like India or somewhere in Canada. So they never actually had the opportunity to visit Tibet and engage with such a rich culture heritage or historical object belongings. So when I invited them to come to the museum to show our Tibetan collection, they are very excited and they really engage with their culture heritage quite deeply and to share their reflection with us for the exhibition.
Incredible. Were there any moments that personally affected you or perhaps made you emotional, or perhaps the individuals who are taking part?
Okay, so I should mention, apart from those students, I worked with two Tibetan Canadian artists. One is a filmmaker, another mainly does photographic work. But this filmmaker, Kun San Kirong, she's originally from Vancouver. When I told her we have the photograph taken by a British officer in Tibet in our archive collection, she got excited because she actually told me she had actually gone to Pete Rivers Museum at the University of Oxford to study their historical photograph collection about Tibet. So when I said, oh, we have something similar here, and she got excited. So she actually came to do research our archive materials first, and then created a new film especially for this exhibition. The film called Letters from Tibet. It's quite unusual to get a new film made for the exhibition I curate. So I was quite excited, this prospect, and it's a lovely, interesting film.
For viewers who are watching right now or by the time this airs, can you share what are your hopes that viewers, whether they have Tibetan heritage or not, what are your hopes that they can take away when they come to MOA to view this exhibit?
Because I think many people who live in Canada are not necessarily aware of the history or the cultural heritage or the also current political context that Tibetans are facing. So I would like, I hope that visitor will actually learn about Tibet through this exhibition and rich cultural heritage. But the fact, as I said, political context actually led to the displacement of Tibetan globally. Therefore, we have a Tibetan diaspora here in Canada. I actually learned Canada is a home to one of the largest concentration of Tibetans outside of Asia.
Incredible, I didn't know that.
And then also the community in Vancouver is relatively small. There's a much larger community in Toronto. They even have a little trip in Toronto. But the community here in Vancouver are very actively engaged. And they were very happy to be part of this exhibition. And many came to the opening and also attended the event this past Saturday.
Many objects, part of the exhibit, carry emotional weight, like letters, belongings, photographs that I had an opportunity to view. And I'm looking forward to you showing me around the exhibit. What pieces stood out to you the most and why?
It's always a tricky question to answer because all the object and belonging works are fantastic in exhibition. But because I collaborate with the students, and they are the one who selected object for the exhibition, not me. So that I want to actually indicate that it's not me selecting, it's a Tibetan members selecting the Tibetan belongings for the exhibition. But one of the many actually students selected the very elaborate robes we have in the collection. We are showcasing two lovely robes, Tibetan robes, in this exhibition. But that's part of the very important collection we have at the MOA, called the Yutok family collection. Yutok family are the descendant of 10th Dalai Lama.
Okay.
Therefore, their ancestors are high government officials. Therefore, they own the elaborate robes, which ordinary Tibetan usually do not have. So it's a very unique collection. And the Yutok family collection is also cultural property of Canada. So government recognized the importance of this Tibetan collection here in Canada.
Now, the exhibit balances cultural identity along with political context. How did you navigate that responsibility as a curator?
Yes, because the relationship with China and Tibet is quite sensitive and quite complex. But at the same time, because of that, there is a diaspora of Tibetans outside of Tibet. So I was trying to see what homeland means to those Tibetan diasporic members in Canada. So I wanted to showcase through their perspective. But there's one particular work by one of the artists, Lola, which I decided to include, which is very politically charged piece, I should say, because the title is 169. It's about the self-immolations. The 169 refers to the number of people who actually self-immolated, to protest for the freedom under repression.
Why do you think it's important for museums in Canada, especially MOA, Museum of Anthropology, to platform diasporic voices right now?
Given so many things are happening across the world, I think, we can always, offer the platform for many visitors to come and learn of different perspectives and different histories and different cultures. And also I wanted to showcase the sustained effort of Tibetan Canadian community members to maintain their culture and also their language in the face of challenges associated with migration and also loss of homeland.
In your view, how can art help preserve cultural identity for communities who have been displaced?
So apart from the museum's collection, as I mentioned, I work with two artists. So I think artists have a special place to play to share their stories, because one other photographic work by the Lola, two of them are called Pala series and Pala and Me. Pala means father in Tibetan. So it's really about her relationship with her cultural heritage through relationship with her own father, who's a Tibetan. And then those photographs are taken in Kathmandu in Nepal, where the family monastery is based. And so her father kind of helped maintain this monastery in Kathmandu. That's why they spend lots of time together, particularly when she was a child. So, but at the same time, there's a kind of feeling of absence in her photograph, because the fact they cannot go to Tibet, but still engage with Tibet from distance.
What conversations do you hope that this exhibit will inspire in Vancouver?
Yeah, Vancouver has a huge community of people of Asian heritage. But we don't necessarily get to hear so much about Tibet here in Vancouver. So I hope people will get to learn about Tibet and what Tibetans are going through to this day. And also because many people living in Vancouver from elsewhere, except the indigenous community members. So we are from somewhere. We often think about homeland. And for Tibetans, even the fact they cannot go to Tibet, whether they think that it's homeland or not is a larger question to think. But maybe all of us can think about the importance of the homeland and one's own heritage, regardless whether you're away from there or not physically.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. I'm excited to view the exhibit with you. I had the opportunity to walk around briefly in there, and I will follow you in there.
Okay, thank you for your interest.
Thank you so much, Dr.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are so grateful Dr. Nakamura could join us today and take us through the exhibit. And I'm so grateful to the entire MOA team for opening this space and sharing such powerful stories with us. Entangled Territories, Tibet Through Images is a reminder of the strength of community, the importance of cultural memory, and the beauty of voices that continue to shape Vancouver's cultural landscape. This exhibit is on until March 29, 2026. Please check it out. Until next time, I'm Zara Durrani, and this is On Location Vancouver, brought to you with the support of TELUS Story Hive. Thank you for joining us for this episode of On Location Vancouver. If you would like to be a guest on the show, please scan the QR code and someone from our team will be in touch. We'll see you soon.